Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so we've got this stack of sources in front of us, all articles from CoinMarketCap, and they're all dated June 5, 2025.
That's right. And our job today really is to dive into what these specific articles are telling us. They hit on some pretty big questions, but also some very specific market stuff happening that day.
Yeah, and right at the top, we have this piece from CoinRankio, and the title kind of sets the stage. What is Genius Act? Can stablecoins really save the dollar?
It's definitely a headline designed to make you stop and think. So we'll dig into the questions it raises for sure. But then we'll see how the other bits of info from that same day maybe, add some color or context to the whole crypto picture.
Exactly. So get ready. We're going to pull out the key pieces and try to connect the dots based only on what these sources give us. Let's get into it. Okay, so kicking off with that CoinRankio title again, what is Genius Act? Can stablecoins really save the dollar?
Right. And the first thing to flag, I think, is that these sources, well, they give us the title and the question, but they don't actually spell out what the Genius Act is.
Ah, okay. So the source just kind of throws the questions out there. What's this act? And that other one, can stablecoins really save the dollar? That sounds pretty significant.
It does. Based just on the title, you'd guess it's about some kind of regulation, maybe, or a big economic discussion involving stablecoins. But yeah, the actual details of the act itself, not in this particular set of articles we have here.
That's important to stress, yeah. We're only working with what's provided. So while that title asks a huge question, the other articles from June 5th give us more concrete market data. Maybe looking at those helps us understand the environment these questions are being asked in.
Okay, let's pivot then. From that big picture question, let's look at some specific news about particular crypto assets that are in these sources. There's something on XRP here from ETH News.
Yes, I see that. And it sounds like pretty good news for Ripple, actually. Their stablecoin, RLUSD, apparently got regulatory approval over in Dubai.
Which, yeah, according to that specific source, is seen as a pretty big deal. They seem to think it boosts institutional confidence, maybe fuels some short-term price movement for XRP. The title even hints XRP might be eyeing $3 because of it.
Huh. But then here's the twist, right? Because the same source also mentions that activity on the XRP ledger itself has actually dropped, like to an 8-month low.
That is interesting. So this one source gives you the positive nod from regulators, predicting price momentum, but also points to falling network usage. It kind of makes you wonder what this source thinks is actually driving XRP at this moment. Is it the external news or the underlying use of the network?
Right. It just shows, I guess, how complex interpreting this stuff can be from the sources. You get signals that seem to point in different directions, all in the same report.
Okay, moving on. Bitcoin. Crypto Newsland has some analysis from that day, too.
And they give a specific price point. Bitcoin holding $105,000.
Yep, 105K. And they note a technical detail. It's trading near something called a triangle apex at that level.
A triangle apex.
Okay.
So for anyone listening, when a source mentions that pattern, it usually means the price has been bouncing between highs and lows that are getting closer and closer together, kind of like the point of a triangle on a chart. It suggests, well, pressure is building for a move.
Exactly. And the source also throws in the 50 MA, that's the 50-day moving average, saying it's active just underneath the price, adding a bit more technical weight right near that triangle tip.
So based on that technical setup described by the source, they're suggesting, what, a couple of possibilities. A confirmed breakout above the triangle could push BTC towards $110 K. But they also mention breakdown targets, even if they don't specify the exact lower numbers in this piece.
And we also have Dogecoin mentioned in these sources. Yellow News provides some analysis there.
Right, and the main thing they note is the price action. Dogecoin fell below the $1.20 support level.
Yeah, but here's the really surprising bit from their take on it. They say this drop wasn't just, the market reacting. They frame it as a calculated trading move.
Calculated. Wow, okay. So the source is explicitly saying it was not panic selling. What does that tell us? That this particular source sees a price drop as maybe a deliberate strategy?
Well, it suggests that this source at least sees some players in the market as acting quite deliberately, maybe strategically, that not every dip is just, fear taking over. It's a different lens on price action. Okay, so we've looked at those individual assets, XRP, Bitcoin, Doge, and the specific takes on them. Let's zoom out a bit now to what some sources say about broader market cycles.
And Coinomedia has a pretty strong view on this, it seems.
Yeah, they make this bold claim. The current cycle, hashtag CryptoCycle 2024, they call it, eerily mirrors the pattern from 2014 to 2017.
And they make a point of saying what it doesn't look like, which is 2021. The language they use is quite dramatic, too. Things like Most won't see it coming. And brace for a rude awakening. They even include hashtags. Hashtag CryptoCycle2024, hashtag Bitcoin, hashtag crypto, hashtag altcoins.
So their take, looking back at that older pattern, seems to imply, well, maybe a less smooth ride ahead than some might expect. Something that could catch people by surprise.
And then adding another perspective on cycles, there's this piece from coindo.com comparing bull cycles.
Right. And their conclusion, reading this source, is that the signs are pointing towards a finale for the current cycle that's maybe delayed but could be explosive when it happens.
They bring up the 2017 cycle as a comparison point, describing it in their analysis as having this sort of relentless upward drive, but with, sharp falls mixed in. So they use that history to frame their prediction of a delayed but powerful end to this current run.
So, okay, let's try and pull these threads together. We've got the specific asset news, the technicals, the regulatory hint, and these different takes on market cycles. What does it all actually suggest for you listening?
Well, I think it shows the picture painted by these specific sources from June 5th is definitely not simple. You've got these huge potential regulatory shifts hinted at, like with the Genius Act and the whole stablecoin question.
And at the same time, you see real-world examples like XRP stablecoin getting that Dubai approval. So it's not just abstract talk. And then you have the nitty-gritty, like Bitcoin fighting around that 105K triangle point.
Plus those more surprising insights, like the Dogecoin drop being described as calculated, which challenges those simple, everyone's panicking narratives.
And then you overlay these big picture cycle debates. One source comparing now to 2014, 2017 and warning of a rude awakening, while another sees a delayed explosive finale coming eventually.
Putting it all together, just based on these sources, gives you a much richer, kind of messier, but maybe more realistic view of the market on that specific day. It's a space dealing with big questions, tactical moves, chart patterns, and history all at once. So we've taken our deep dive into this collection of sources from June 5, 2025. We looked at XRP, Bitcoin, Dogecoin moves, compared different views on crypto cycles, and flagged those really interesting questions around the Genius Act and stablecoins.
Yeah, it definitely seems clear just from this snapshot that making sense of the crypto world involves juggling a lot of different things, specific prices, technical charts, regulatory news, and trying to see how it fits into historical patterns.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on based on what we've walked through today. If, like some of these sources suggest, market cycles have these strong echoes of the past, and even specific price drops can be calculated moves, well, how much of where the market goes is kind of baked in by these patterns and strategies versus how much can things like new regulations or, technologies like stablecoins truly change the path?
That's a good question. That tension between the sort of internal market logic and these external forces hitting it.
Exactly. Something to think about. Anyway, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into your sources. Keep exploring and keep asking questions.